welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a massive, honestly pretty profound shift in what it actually means to grow older in America today. It's a reality that's going to touch every single one of us, and the landscape is changing a lot faster than most people even realize.
So, let's start with a universally understood goal, right? It's basically the core of the American dream. Millions of people go out there and work their absolute hardest for decades with this one singular vision in mind: retirement. It's the finish line, the golden years.
But when that moment finally arrives, a pretty jarring new reality sets in for so many folks. They realize, incredibly, that they can't actually afford to stop working. I mean, imagine reaching that finish line. You're exhausted but hopeful, only to find out that the rules of the race have completely changed on you.
Part 1. The promise of retirement. Retirement used to be relatively simple. The old reality was basically a clear contract. You put your head down, you work hard for 30 or 40 years, and then you get to rest. The baseline expectation was, a small home, reliable savings, and genuine peace of mind. But today, that dream has morphed into a really complicated new reality. It requires working much longer, executing this constant financial balancing act, and honestly, just living with a lot of uncertainty.
So why did this shift happen on a macroeconomic level? Well, the math simply no longer works. It's that simple. Prices have steadily gone up and up, but wages, they just have not kept up with those rising costs. And because of this persistent, widening gap between what things cost and what people are actually earning throughout their working lives, retirement just isn't a guaranteed era of comfort anymore. That safety cushion is completely gone.
Part 2. The shocking new reality.
Okay, here is the first reality most people simply do not expect. A massive number of Americans are now reaching retirement age, still in debt. Historically, the whole point was to have the house paid off and the credit card sitting at zero by the time you hit 65, right? But today, people are entering their supposedly restful years, carrying some seriously heavy financial liabilities.
And because of that debt, plus a lack of sufficient savings, a shockingly large number of older Americans are still out there working part-time. And let's be incredibly clear about the motivation here. Because it's not just to stay busy or get out of the house. It's not because they want to. It's because they have to. It's an issue of pure, basic necessity.
Because, think about it, the fundamental costs of living don't just miraculously turn off the day you turn 65. You still have to pay rent, you still have to buy groceries, and then there's healthcare. Healthcare becomes this massive, ongoing, and frankly, incredibly expensive burden that only grows as we age. Since these costs stay so high, retirement turns into this relentless balancing act. You're trying to work less, but knowing deep down you absolutely cannot afford to stop entirely.
Which brings us to a massive question. Seriously, how did retirement in one of the richest countries in the entire world become this incredibly difficult? It's a huge paradox, and it demands our attention. So let's pull back the curtain and really look at the root causes of this crisis.
Part 3. Why did this happen?
Well, the answer isn't just one single thing. Actually, it's more like a perfectly stacked burden. First, housing prices have increased way faster than income. Simultaneously, healthcare costs have just absolutely skyrocketed. Throw in constant everyday inflation making everything from gas to eggs more expensive, and you've got yourself a perfect financial storm. And then there's the paradox of living longer. Now, on one hand, people living longer is an amazing thing, right? More years with your family, more years to enjoy life. But the challenge, the catch, is that those extra years act as a hidden financial drain. Your finite pool of savings now has to stretch decades further than previous generations ever even had to plan for. Now, all of those economic factors are absolutely vital to understand. But here's something most people rarely talk about. Behind all the charts and the data, there is a profound human cost here that we really need to acknowledge.
Part 4. The emotional truth.
There's a sentiment shared by so many older Americans today, and it goes like this. It's not just about money. It's about fear of the future. Retirement was supposed to be the reward, right? After decades of grinding labor. Instead, for so many people, that peace of mind has been completely replaced by this lingering, heavy anxiety about what happens next. So, to survive their golden years, many are basically forced to take some really drastic steps. Some are continuing to work part-time well into their late 60s and 70s. Others have to depend heavily on family support just to make ends meet every month. And a lot of folks have to radically change their entire lifestyles, downsizing or even moving to completely different states out of sheer necessity.
Let's just pause for a second here, because this is vital to remember. We're not just looking at numbers on a spreadsheet or dry economic statistics. This is real life. These are our neighbors, our parents, our coworkers. They're struggling to maintain their dignity and independence after a literal lifetime of hard work.
Part 5, Surviving the Future.
So what we are looking at is a total transformation of what retirement even is. The original goal used to be a peaceful chapter of pure freedom, but today, reality dictates that retirement is a sustained fight. It's something you actively have to battle for, rather than a reward you automatically just get to enjoy.
Which really makes you wonder, if retirement is already this hard today with all these economic pressures we've just outlined, what is it going to look like in the next 10 or 20 years? How on earth will the next generation possibly adapt to this?
The definitive lesson we have to take away from this explainer is that the rules have completely changed, period. Planning for your future is no longer just optional. It is literally survival. Understanding these massive shifts and managing your finances isn't just good advice anymore. It is an absolute necessity. So, knowing what you know now about the reality of growing older in America, what steps are you going to take today to secure your tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining this explainer. Keep learning, keep planning, and we'll see you next time.